Welcome to this deep dive. We're really thrilled you could join us today because we're going to be unpacking a sector that physically underpins just about every single object around you right now.
Oh, absolutely. Everything from the structural steel in your office to the phone in your hand.
Exactly. The vast majority of those items spent weeks traversing the ocean. I mean, shipping is responsible for about 80% of international trade volume and almost 70% of its value.
It's the invisible backbone of the global economy.
It really is.
Yeah.
But that incredible logistical efficiency comes with a massive cost. If we look at the data from 2022, we're talking about over 730 million tons of CO2 emissions in just 1 year.
That is a staggering footprint.
Yeah, it's huge. And today's mission is to figure out exactly how we clean up this massive, hard-to-abate industry. To do that, we have a fantastic source. It's an in-depth piece of research titled Review of Maritime Defossilization Regarding Regulation, Energy Efficiency, Alternative Fuels, and Technologies.
It's a remarkably comprehensive study.
It really covers it all. Okay, let's unpack this. We always hear shipping called hard to abate. But, we see cars pivoting to electric so fast right now. Why can't we just scale that technology up?
Right. Why not
Well,
just slap a giant battery in a cargo ship?
yeah. Why doesn't that work?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, fixing shipping is absolutely crucial for hitting global climate goals like the Paris Agreement. But you have to look at the physics of energy density.
Okay, meaning what exactly?
Meaning with an electric car, you only need enough energy to drive maybe 300 miles before you can just plug into the grid again. But a massive cargo ship crossing the Pacific.
It has to carry everything it needs for weeks.
Exactly. So if you try to power a massive container ship with lithium-ion batteries, the energy density, both gravimetric and volumetric, is just too low. The batteries would be so insanely heavy and huge that you wouldn't have any room left for actual cargo.
Right, which totally defeats the purpose of a cargo ship. So we're stuck needing a liquid fuel. And the scale of the problem is just wild to me. Right now, almost all of these ships run on heavy fuel oil, or HFO.
Yes, the classic bunker fuel.
And it's basically this thick, highly polluting sludge left over at the refinery after they take out all the good stuff like gasoline.
It's incredibly cheap and very energy dense, which is why the industry loves it. But yes, it is exceptionally dirty.
So getting thousands of these gigantic ships off this sludge is, it's a monumental task.
It is. And because HFO is so cheap, the market isn't just going to fix this on its own. That is where the authorities have to step in and force the change.
Enter the IMO.
Right, the International Maritime Organization. They've set this aggressive goal of reaching net zero by or around 2050.
But to actually do that, they've created what this study basically outlines as an alphabet soup of regulations.
It really is an alphabet soup.
Let's break some of these down. We've got the EDI and the EEXI.
Right. So the EDI is the Energy Efficiency Design Index. That one applies strictly to brand new ships. It forces builders to make ships more efficient right from the design phase.
And the EEXI.
That's for the existing ships already out on the water. It forces them to meet specific technical baselines too. Often older ships literally have to install engine power limitations so they physically cannot burn fuel as fast.
Wow, okay. And then there are the operational measures like the SEEMP and the CII.
Yes, the carbon intensity indicator.
The CII is fascinating because it literally gives ships a grade, right? From A down to E.
Exactly. It operates like a report card based on how the ship has actually sailed each year. And if a ship gets a D rating for 3 years or an E rating just once, the operator is in serious trouble. They have to submit a corrective action plan.
Nobody wants an E on their multi-million-dollar ship.
Definitely not. It makes the ship much harder to charter out.
And this isn't just about global CO2. The study talks a lot about local pollution, too. They mention these ECAs, or emission control areas.
Yes, these are critical. ECAs are specific zones, like the Baltic Sea, and they're expanding to the Mediterranean, the Canadian Arctic, and the Norwegian Sea. When a ship enters these zones, they have to drastically cut their sulfur and nitrogen emissions.
The SOx and the NOx.
Exactly. They have to switch to cleaner fuels or use scrubbers just to sail through those waters legally.
The study also mentions what the European Union is doing with market-based mechanisms like the EU ETS and Fuel EU Maritime. And just looking at it objectively, these are essentially carbon pricing tools designed to bridge the cost gap. By pricing the carbon, they artificially make that cheap, heavy fuel oil more expensive, which makes the green fuels look a lot more viable to the shipping companies.
That's the exact mechanism. It internalizes the environmental cost, so the math starts working in favor of alternative fuels.
Okay, so speaking of those alternative fuels, here's where it gets really interesting. What are they actually going to put in these fuel tanks?
Well, the study breaks it down into a great divide between two categories. You have biofuels and you have e-fuels.
Okay, let's start with biofuels.
Biofuels are made from biomass or waste, think used cooking oil or agricultural residue. They are relatively cheap right now, and the best part is they are often drop-in fuels. You can put them in existing engines without changing much.
But there's a catch, right?
A massive catch.
Hmm.
There's a hard limit on how much biofuel we can actually produce. If we try to run the entire global shipping fleet on biofuels, we would run out of biomass very quickly and we'd start competing directly with global food supplies.
Yeah, that's not a viable long-term plan.
So what about the e-fuels?
E-fuels are the opposite. They are made using renewable electricity to create green hydrogen, which is then synthesized into liquid fuel. They are infinitely scalable. As long as you can build wind and solar farms, you can make e-fuels.
But I'm guessing they aren't cheap.
Not at all. Currently, they are very expensive to produce.
So what are ships actually buying right now? Because looking at the study, it seems like LNG, liquefied natural gas, is the most popular alternative fuel today.
It is the most popular right now, but the study actually calls LNG a bipolar fuel
Bipolar. How so?
because it solves one problem brilliantly but exacerbates another. On a local level, LNG is fantastic. It basically eliminates sulfur oxides and particulate matter, so it easily passes all those strict ECA regulations we talked about.
Okay, so that's the good side. What's the bad side?
The bad side is something called methane slip.
Right.
When you burn LNG in a ship's engine, a small amount of the methane doesn't burn. It just slips out the exhaust pipe and escapes into the atmosphere. And methane is a remarkably potent greenhouse gas. It's much worse than CO2 in the short term.
So it's great for the air quality in the port, but terrible for the actual global climate.
Precisely. Which is why the consensus in the study is that LNG is strictly a transitional stepping stone. It is not the final destination.
Okay, so if LNG is just a stepping stone, walk us through the true zero-carbon contenders that this study identifies. What about hydrogen? We hear about hydrogen all the time.
Hydrogen sounds perfect on paper because when you use it, the only thing it emits is water.
Sounds ideal.
It does, but it has a fatal flaw for deep-sea shipping, and that goes back to volumetric energy density. To carry enough liquid hydrogen to cross an ocean, you would need gigantic, supercooled fuel tanks.
And those tanks take up space.
A massive amount of space. You would lose so much precious cargo room that the ship would no longer be commercially viable.
So hydrogen is out for the big ocean crossers. What about methanol?
Methanol is looking like a great short to medium-term option. It's liquid at regular temperatures, making it way easier to store and handle than hydrogen.
But there's a bottleneck there too, right, with making it green.
Yes. To make green e-methanol, you need a sustainable source of captured CO2. You have to literally pull carbon out of the air or get it from a biogenic source. And finding enough sustainable carbon for the whole global fleet is a huge bottleneck.
Which brings us to the big reveal. The ultimate long-term winner identified by this study, e-ammonia.
E-ammonia is the true heavyweight here
Why does ammonia win?
because it completely bypasses the carbon problem. The chemical formula for ammonia is NH3. It's just nitrogen and hydrogen. There is no carbon involved at all.
So you don't need to capture CO2 to make it.
Exactly. You just take
Yeah.
nitrogen straight out of the ambient air, combine it with green hydrogen, and you have your fuel. It is highly scalable.
But, and this is a massive caveat, that the study points out ammonia is highly toxic.
Incredibly toxic.
Yeah.
This is the big hurdle. We are talking about taking an industrial chemical and turning it into a standard maritime fuel. If there's a spill or a vapor leak at a busy port, it presents a severe, lethal safety challenge for the crew and marine life.
So the fuel systems have to be completely redesigned.
Double-walled piping, heavy ventilation, completely new safety training. It's a massive engineering challenge.
You know, that's a good pivot because the study makes it clear that it's not just about what you burn, it's about how you burn it. The engines themselves.
Right, the propulsion systems. Currently, almost everything runs on an internal combustion engine. But the study looks closely at fuel cells.
Like PEMFC and SOFC fuel cells.
Yes, proton exchange membrane and solid oxide fuel cells. They don't burn the fuel, they convert it electrochemically, so they are incredibly efficient. With a solid oxide fuel cell, if you capture the waste heat, you can reach up to 80% efficiency.
Wow, 80%. That's way better than a standard diesel engine.
Vastly better. And they are silent, but they're also incredibly expensive right now.
The study mentions battery electric ships briefly too, but again, restricted to short trips, right?
Yes, like local ferries. Because battery energy density is up to 50 times lower than diesel, they just can't do the long hauls.
Okay, so fuel cells and e-ammonia are the future, but they are expensive and need new infrastructure. What I loved in this study were the immediate life hacks, the things ships are doing right now to save fuel.
The operational efficiency measures, they are critical.
Let's talk about slow steaming. It's exactly what it sounds like, just driving the ship slower.
It is the easiest lever to pull. Because of the physics of water resistance, dropping a ship's speed by just 10% can reduce its emissions by 19%.
19% from just a slight slowdown. And the study says extreme slow steaming can cut emissions by up to 60%.
It's remarkably effective, but of course the downside is that it ruins logistics timelines. Supply chains have to adjust to much longer transit times.
True. But there's also some really cool tech making a comeback, like wind assistance.
Yes, we are seeing ships returning to wind power.
They're putting these giant modern sails, or those spinning cylinders, Flettner rotors, on the decks.
Flettner rotors are brilliant. They spin and create a pressure differential that actually pushes the ship forward. Using wind tech can cut fuel use by around 20%.
And then there's air lubrication.
This one is fascinating.
They literally pump a carpet of bubbles under the ship's hull.
Right. It reduces the friction between the hull and the water, which saves another 5 to 15% on fuel.
And when they finally reach the port, the study talks about cold ironing.
Yes, shore power. Instead of letting their massive diesel engines idle just to keep the lights and refrigerators on, they plug the ship directly into the local electrical grid.
It's like plugging in a giant appliance.
Exactly. It drastically cuts down on local port pollution.
So what does this all mean? We've got this wild mix of IMO regulations, highly toxic ammonia, fuel cells, modern sails, and bubble carpets. How does all of this actually come together to change an entire global industry?
To understand the timeline, the study uses the concept of the S-curve of systemic transition.
ES curve.
Right, imagine an S shape. Phase 1 is the bottom curve, the emergence phase. That's where we are right now. We have the pilot ships, we have the new IMO rules, the technologies exist.
But we aren't scaling fast enough.
Exactly. We're stuck trying to get to phase 2, which is the steep upward climb of diffusion and scaling.
And the bottleneck keeping us stuck is basically a giant chicken and egg problem.
A multi-billion-dollar chicken and egg problem. Ship owners do not want to buy these expensive e-ammonia ships if the ports don't have the e-ammonia bunkering infrastructure ready.
But the ports aren't going to build these massive, specialized cryogenic ammonia tanks if there are no ships coming to buy it.
Precisely. And on top of that, we need massive amounts of renewable electricity to be built just to make these e-fuels in the first place.
So how do we break the deadlock?
This raises an important question, doesn't it? How do we bridge the gap? The study highlights that we absolutely have to have strong policy support and carbon pricing to force the issue. But we also desperately need pioneer companies.
First movers.
Yes. Companies willing to take on the initial financial risk. They have to order the ships and sign the fuel contracts at the same time to brute force this supply chain into existence and drive the costs down for everyone else.
And time is ticking because these ships last a long time.
20 to 30 years.
So if a company buys a dirty ship today, that ship is locked in, polluting for decades.
Which is exactly why retrofits and dual fuel engines are acting as a critical safety net right now. You buy a ship today that can burn LNG or HFO, but is designed to be upgraded to ammonia later.
It's an incredible journey we've been on today. We've gone from the dirty reality of heavy fuel oil sludge to the high-tech promise of fuel cells. We've looked at ammonia, which is toxic but incredibly effective, and we've even talked about ships gliding on carpets of bubbles. It really highlights the monumental effort required to clean up the logistics networks that keep our world running. So thank you to you, our listener, for joining us to explore the review of maritime defossilization regarding regulation, energy efficiency, alternative fuels, and technologies.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought.
Go for it.
We've talked extensively about the incredible amount of green electricity that is going to be required to produce e-fuels like ammonia and hydrogen for the global fleet. But think about what that means for global geopolitics.
How so?
If the maritime shipping industry successfully transitions entirely to e-fuels, will the geopolitical power of the 21st century shift away from nations sitting on massive oil reserves and consolidate entirely toward nations with the most abundant wind and sun?
Wow. That completely flips the map of global energy power. That is definitely something to think about the next time you see a massive container ship on the horizon. Thank you so much for exploring this with us. Keep learning, stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.